Hello, everyone, and welcome to Claris Community Live today. Our guests are Jasper Schoonackers from Lesterius in Europe, Doug Wallis, and Sangeeta Banerjee from the Claris product management team. And we will be talking about FileMaker 2024 security features. So we've just started a poll, so please, as our guests panelists introduce themselves, please answer the poll. We just want to know what platform you're running servers on, and a little bit about your security configuration. So Jasper, why don't we start with you? Can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started with FileMaker?
Yes. Hi everyone. I'm Jasper. I'm 23 years old. I work for Lesterius for about 11 years now as a consultant and a Claris hosting and cloud specialist. I'm based in Belgium, and I actually started with FileMaker when I joined this company. I didn't knew FileMaker when I was at school. I studied IT. But I joined this company because I thought FileMaker was a very interesting product, and so yeah, I'm still here, still enjoying it.
Very good. And Sangeeta, what are you working on as a product manager right now? I think everybody knows you pretty well.
Yeah, so I have working on Connect as well as Cloud, and I'm really excited to be here to talk about the security features and some of the enhancements that we have done recently on Cloud.
And Doug, welcome back. We had you just a few weeks ago talking about FileMaker 2024 in general. So just want to introduce yourself one more time to our audience.
Hopefully not last one. Hi, morning everyone. So my name is Doug Wallis. I've been at FileMaker/Claris for about 10 years now. Work on the PM team. Essentially for 24 was doing a bit of work on security and server and pro, and now focusing essentially for the next version on the pro and all the new great stuff we want to bring to the community. Some of it is around security, but a lot of it is around making the whole platform newer and integrating better with the other platforms.
Excellent. I'm sure we're all excited about that. And I'm just taking a quick look at the poll, and it looks like a majority, or a plurality, I should say, about 45% of the people who responded to the poll are running their server on Windows, and a quarter on Mac OS, about just under 20% on Ubuntu, and a handful on either FileMaker Cloud or hosting with a Claris partner. And of those who answered, almost everybody is running with an SSL certificate. So I think that's great news.
Great.
It will make the conversation a lot quicker. So.
Yeah. So thank you everyone for completing the poll. And so Doug, why don't we start with you? If you can just give an overview of what's new around security with FileMaker 2024.
Cool. So I'm going to go through a couple of slides going through the messaging that we have around FileMaker 2024 and especially FileMaker Server 2024, so that everyone can align on what we're trying to actually sort of get to and the work that the team has been essentially working on. So let me quickly share a bit of the keynote. Not going to spend too much time. If you've actually seen the previous live session that we did 2 weeks ago, it was pretty much the same content. We've talked about through various developer group. There was a couple again this week. But for those who haven't seen it, basically, is we just want to make sure that you can actually see what we've done in FileMaker 2024 around security. So the one thing that we've been working is essentially the target, what we call the target persona when we do the work, is really targeted at what we call the developer, the person that basically creates the custom app, manages basically that app on the server or on FileMaker Cloud, and give access to other users inside the company or if they're a partner, a few other customers. And so one of the real sort of angle we're working on is to give those developers the most amount of tools to make their life a lot easier to be able to actually have a very secure environment. So with FileMaker Server, two aspects we actually worked on. One of those basically is making sure that it was easier for people to actually have SSL certificate. Obviously, pretty much in the room actually has got one, but we know there's still a lot of customers out there that for some reason either don't know how to install it or don't want to actually pay for it. So we try to actually have extra support for specific type of certificate to make everyone's life a lot easier. The other part of it, and we'll talk more about Jasper and Sangeeta, is around like optimizing console control, especially for the admin console and other services like admin API and some of the work we've done on FileMaker Cloud to make your life easier and more secure for the developer. So on the FileMaker Server side, what we've done is we've now supporting the Let's Encrypt SSL certificate. We've written a blog. I'll show you afterwards basically what it looks like. But essentially is the work that we had to do was to make it easier for people that want to leverage a Let's Encrypt SSL certificate inside the FileMaker Server environment, easy to install and easy to renew. So Let's Encrypt basically is a organization who values security as not really a question whether you actually should have one. Their belief is strongly is there is no reason why you haven't got an SSL certificate on any type of servers. They want to make sure that people basically should have the most secure environment. So the principle behind it is it should be free. Anyone should be able to get a certificate that they could actually install on their system. The other thing is they basically want to make sure people understand is in order for that SSL certificate, it needs to be renewed often so that there's less chances of hackers trying to get into your system. Normally, SSL certificate need to only be updated once a year, but with the strategy behind Let's Encrypt, it's basically is every 30 days they want you to basically have your system or your certificate be updated. And so we created 2-3 script steps or system script basically that could be found in the FileMaker Server tool section. So there's a folder and you'll see those couple of scripts where you could actually create the whole process to be able to actually get the information with Let's Encrypt servers, to be able to actually sort of get all the files that you need inside FileMaker Server. And then there's another file to enable you to actually do the renewals. And the other thing we've added on top of that is a system script inside FileMaker Server admin console, where you can create a schedule script that run every 30 days to make sure your system has an updated version of that Let's Encrypt certificate. Currently, we've only been able to actually do the work on macOS and Ubuntu. There's a bit more work we need to do actually on the Windows side because of how the system actually works on Windows, but we're working to be able to actually bring Let's Encrypt to the Windows platform as well.
Yeah, and we just got a question specifically if you can share any idea of a timeline for when Let's Encrypt will be available on Windows.
For Windows, so we don't really give timeline. The only thing I can say is we have quarterly updates for the version that we have, and it will be basically in the next update. So no date really, but basically is sometimes after the summer. So not too far from now. We have an ETS in place where soon we'll actually get people to actually test. And if you're really looking to actually sort of test it, see how it's going to work on Windows, you can actually just email us at ets@claris.com. We can add you to the ETS, you can test it, and then give us some feedbacks around that. I'll just basically quickly share the blog that we created. So we had the engineering team basically working on a kind of longish Let's Encrypt blog to actually tell you what to do with it. The reason it's actually long is there's a lot of things that you need to make sure that you understand before kind of using it. So it's a very secure environment, Let's Encrypt, but there's a couple of basically specific limitation that you have to actually sort of understand. So basically it only works if you have a full domain name. It only works with specific a specific type of validation for the certificate. So that page basically is available on our blog. You can go through it. It's kind of actually straightforward to actually sort of run through it. There's a couple of mention of actually installing various softwares like Python, but essentially it's just to write the shell script, once you've actually run them, basically it just does everything for you in the backend. So not that hard to actually sort of leverage. And in a lot of cases, if you've already tried to deal with other type of SSL certificates, sometimes they are kind of weird in the way they actually do work. So at least with this, it should be actually kind of straightforward in that environment.
Thanks, Doug. And Sangeeta, just can you remind everybody or share the work we're doing in FileMaker Cloud as well for security?
So, being an Apple company, the security and privacy are our topmost priority. And we have made significant investments in security for maintaining rigorous security controls for protecting the infrastructure and customer data in cloud through third-party attestation and certification. So we have SOC 2, which is Systems and Organizations Controls 2, SOC 2 Type 2 report that covers trust services around security, confidentiality, and availability for protecting customer data and their infrastructure. In addition, we also have ISO certification, which is the International Organization for Standardization, under Apple certification process for information security management, which is ISO 27001, and for personal data in the cloud, which is ISO 27018. Now, Apple and Claris worked together and went through a rigorous testing process for FileMaker Cloud and collaborating with the external auditor to obtain the certifications. Now, just a reminder, these certifications and the SOC 2 Type 2 applies to only cloud vendors and your cloud infrastructure and data, not to your FileMaker solution on the prem. So Claris at Apple, and this is not a one-time process, because as you know, the threat landscape is constantly evolving, and we need to keep ourselves updated with all the vulnerability that's coming, the security updates. So every year we go through the rigorous testing of the FileMaker Cloud through the external auditors, and then update our and provide security updates to FileMaker Cloud. Thank you.
Yeah. And Jasper, what's the value of these security improvements to your customers? And what do you do at Lesterius to provide good security to your hosting and development clients?
Yeah. Yeah, it's really great to see that FileMaker now supports Let's Encrypt for now on Mac and Linux, but as Doc said, it will come to Windows as well, so then everybody can enjoy this. I think it's really great because it lowers the threshold to get started with SSL, and it's easy to set it up. Maybe the blog article that Doc showed looks a bit complicated if you give it a first look, but you can just follow it step by step, and at the end you have a working SSL certificate on your FileMaker server. There is no cost involved, so at this moment there is no excuse anymore to not use SSL. So it's really great that Claris is giving us the tools to comply with today's IT compliance policies. But when you're working for a customer or you offer hosting, well, I think in this case it's more depending on the customer. You also need to look with your customer what their policy is on SSL certificates. Some organizations don't allow the use of domain validated SSL certificates, for example. And that means you cannot use Let's Encrypt in that case. Also, when the server is not reachable from the internet, you cannot use Let's Encrypt. So if they require, so if the server is offline or they want you to use an organization validated or extended validation SSL certificate, you should be looking to a paid certificate agency. And in this case, yeah, you pay something for that, but in this case, you actually pay for a higher level of validation. You also have some support you can reach out to, and yeah, it's like an insurance. Yeah, so that's the added value of a paid certificate, but it's really great that everybody can use SSL now with Let's Encrypt. In case you don't want to deal with these responsibilities, you can also trust on the excellent security of Claris Cloud, which is using Apple's technology, or you can go to a Claris hosting partner, which provides hosting with an included SSL certificate in their offer.
Thanks. We have a few questions and a correction about Let's Encrypt. First, I just want to call out that Wim has called out that you can use Let's Encrypt if the server is not available on the internet by using the DNS challenge instead of the domain challenge. And the Solion Consulting has a blog about how to set that up, and I'll drop that link. Or actually, I'll ask Wim to drop that link in the chat. And then there are a couple other questions, and I don't know if Doug or Jasper, if you want to answer this. The first is about just automation. Does the Let's Encrypt renewal script run automatically on a schedule so that this becomes a set and forget configuration?
For that one, you're going to have to create your own schedule. So within the system scripts on the new admin console, we've already got the script basically, or the system script basically in memory. And you'll have to create your own schedule to set it up to either. I mean, one of the things that we do say on the blog is basically ideally you want to do as regular as you can. Maybe not every day, even though we do on the FileMaker Cloud, we have an auto maintenance. So every night we restart the server just to make sure that file gets closed properly and updates the SS certificate in the background as well. You don't have to do the same stuff on the server, but normally every 30 days is the when you want to actually do the update of your Let's Encrypt certificate. I think they still basically allow the certificate to be alive for 90 days. But I think they have system that actually checks to make sure that you do kind of renew regularly your certificate. So once you've actually got the schedule set up, it's really up to you to decide whether you want to do it like once a week, every 30 days. But if you do it regularly, then it's less problem that can actually come up in the future.
And the follow-up to that also is with Let's Encrypt, do you need to reboot the server after every certificate update?
You need to, yeah. Is every time you actually renew a certificate, you have to actually reboot the server.
All right, and one last question, and this, I think anybody can weigh in the chat on this, or I'll let the panel weigh in. Are there any known issues moving from a currently an older paid certificate to Let's Encrypt?
Yeah, that should be possible without any issues. So when you first run the script that FileMaker provides, it will in fact replace your current certificate, restart the server, and then it starts with the new certificate loaded. So it's quite easy to change if you want to do that.
Great. And let's move on, Doug. I know we've made some other management improvements to FileMaker Server.
Yeah, so most of the work that was done is around there's two areas we basically mentioned changes. So around the scheduling, so that there was like one interface for everyone to be able to control from one specific area the work that they had to do. which meant it was easier for people to be able to properly leverage their interface. So I'm just going to quickly launch my, if I've lost it now, my admin console. Yeah. So once you've actually logged in, work that we've actually done was around making sure that we could actually make it easier for people to control the backups, to see what was going on, and to be able to actually retrieve backups in an easier way, and be able to actually sort of, when you have the backup, decide to actually do maybe a backup to another sort of system, basically give you more control. So under the configuration tab on the FileMaker server, on the schedule, we've actually created this new interface that gives you a bit more control over what you can do. So when you go into this area, you have different type of script that you can, or schedule you can create, the FileMaker script, the system script, which is where you'll be able to actually create the one to actually reload the SSL certificate. There's one for script sequences, a verify type of script, and then the backup one, where you could actually control where you want to actually copy it, whether you want to copy all the databases. You've got settings, so you can actually have just clones being copied. You can do verify. It gives you more. It kind of gives you more control of what you can do. And once you actually create that schedule from the backup area, you've actually got access to be able to see all the different sort of type of schedule you created. They go into specific folders inside the FileMaker server database/backup folder. And then from there, you can actually see all the various backups you do, and you can actually run the specific stuff. So it gives you kind of a bit more freedom in terms of what you can do. On top of that, we've been working on providing better administrative roles for users. So this is more for the likes of Jasper's, for the hosting partners, for companies where you want to give a control admin console environment for your end users so that they can actually have specific access to specific folders. And so in combination with the administrator roles and the backups, you could actually decide that your end users could have specific access to specific backups, which they could actually do whatever they want with those backups. But then on you as a main administrator of the system, create another backup schedule so that as a hosting company, you would be able to actually create and control basically the backups. So the idea was making sure that we give you more of further access to be able to actually manage all of that. And the other thing we do on top of it is everything that we actually build inside the admin console and more is we actually have everything working through the admin API. The admin API is basically where we do spend a lot of time because a lot of the technologies that we use inside the admin API can actually be both leveraged through the admin console for FileMaker Server and for the admin for the admin console for FileMaker Cloud. So on FileMaker 2024, we have a new feature so that it's easier to upload and download files through the admin API, both for the cloud and server. And so we're just basically making sure that we give you all the control you need to be able to actually access the files. Sometimes I know people saying, well, the admin console is missing things and the admin API is way too hard for me to kind of leverage. And there's a couple of great files basically on the internet provided by partners around leveraging the API. The one that I really like is the one from Mike Duncan from Solion called Admin API Tool. You can find on GitHub. And it's really cool because it has everything from around the admin API. And so you could actually use that to be able to control some of the things that is harder to actually see inside the admin console.
And Jasper, as Doug alluded, the admin roles is a feature that is now back in FileMaker Server. And I know you've said you're pretty excited about it and can show us an example of how you set it up and how you use it for your customers.
Yeah. Yeah, so we were really happy that this feature is back. We lost it a few years ago. I don't remember exactly in which version, but at the time we were using it. Mainly in our hosting, we use it to give our customers access to to their databases in admin console and give them rights to create scripts and so on for their databases, create extra backups for that. But we preferably don't want to touch the settings of the admin console. And then in the past few years, the setting was gone, and then we had to give them full access over admin console. And sometimes it happened that they disabled some things because they thought they didn't need it or they were experimenting, and then they called us saying, "Hey, my server stopped working." So this is really great that this is back. It is also used in companies where we have different departments using a single FileMaker server. For example, in a hospital, I have a small demo for that on how you can set it up. Let me share my screen. So in this example, it's an example with a hospital, and where you have a department, neurology and maternity, that are both using the FileMaker server, and where you would like to give them control over their files so they can make backups of their files, download the backups, maybe create server-side scripts if they have an in-house developer on their department. And you can set it up here under the administrator roles, and then you can create an account. For example, here neurology, you give them a password. You can specify what they can do. So for example, perform actions on databases is upload databases, download them, close them, open them, and then you can say that they can create extra backup schedules and run scripts, for example. You can also assign an external group to it. This is a local group, and on the Windows machine, it's a local group. An advantage of this is that you can assign people to it, to the group, so they have an individual access to the admin console. And to do that, you have to go, it's actually quite easy. You have to go to the computer management, and then go to local users and groups, go to groups. And then I have created here a group for neurology and maternity. Then you go to users and you create a user, for example, Tom, and you make him a member of FM group neurology. And then in your admin console, you say that here the external group is the FM group neurology that we created as a local Windows group. And then when you log in as Tom, for example, well, let me show you how it first looks from as an administrator. So here I have all the databases on the machine, and I have all the schedules here. So let's log in as Tom, who is part of neurology. He only sees databases and configuration. So in databases, he only sees the database for his department. And when he goes to configuration, he can see only the schedules for his group. And if he creates a new schedule, that's also only for his group. That's the demo on how you can use this. Yeah. And you can, of course, do the same if you're a partner and you offer hosting to give a client a sub-admin access.
And well, actually, I was going to say, while you're sharing, we have a question about, is it possible to export and import schedules from an old server and then use them in FileMaker 2024?
Yes, that's no problem. If you export it from the backups or from the server-side scripts, it doesn't matter where you export it from. You will get one file that includes both backups and scripts, and that you can import on the new server.
Thanks. And I think this is a question for Doug. There were a couple comments about that schedule number 1 default backup schedule, like, is it possible to, I think it's more of a feature request. Could we make it so that developers could turn it off for themselves if they don't want to use it?
The main one, I think you can turn it off with the admin API. You can't turn it off on the admin console, but if I remember, either through the CLI, I'll have to check, or the admin API, I think there's a way you could actually deactivate that. Let me just check quickly.
I see Wim posted the command to disable it in the chat. You can disable it from the command line or from the terminal. I haven't tried it via that admin API, but I guess it also works. But with the command Wim posted, you can do it from the command line.
But you can't do it from the admin console.
You cannot do it from the admin console, no.
Yeah. One of the things that we're trying to do as well with the admin console is it is made for all our customers, and we have hundreds of thousands of every type of customers. And one thing we want to make sure is at least there is a basic backup on your system, whatever you do with it. So we want to keep that function of being able to actually be there all the time, which is why we give you the option to actually deactivate if you want to, but we put it somewhere where it's more for the advanced developers versus every type of user. So
yeah, I agree on this. There have been some situations where we go to a new customer for the first time. They have an existing FileMaker server, and when you log in on their console, it's an old version, and you see no backup was configured. And by having a default schedule that's on by default, and you cannot turn off your admin console, there is always a backup for people that are not that technical.
It's kind of the safeguard that we put in there, and we've done the same even with the logs. At first, there was a lot of all the logs that we have, whether it's stop call and stuff like that, where we thought, well, let's just not set them on by default. But again, is in other cases people haven't got the time to actually set them up. So now we decided that pretty much all the logs are actually on by default. So that when we need information and for security purposes, it's a lot easier to actually have those open. So it kind of works both ways. Sometimes we would wish we could have more toggle on and off on the admin console, but then it would get very, very, very busy. So we just went, well, at least they have schedules. Let's just keep it that way for the time being.
I'm just doing a quick look through the questions. There's a quick question about external authentication with Active Directory. John is saying in its current environment, they're using user accounts in FileMaker, and their IT department is pressuring them to switch to using Active Directory. Is there any differences configuring for Active Directory in FileMaker 2024 versus FileMaker 2023? So
the only thing we did change was in terms of the external authentication, so that you could actually custom OAuth. So if you're using Windows, nothing's really changed in that area. The only difference with the custom OAuth is, so if you've got the public version of Microsoft Azure, then you can just leverage basically the templates that we set up. If you're using the government accounts from Azure, because I know we've got quite a few people actually using that, you can use the custom OAuth, and basically you provide the same information that you have for any type of OAuth, and it will actually work the same way. If you want to basically have a different icon when you basically log in, so you have this sort of login page or the login window inside the FileMaker Pro, and you have the icon, which is normally the Microsoft icon. If you want to change that for whatever reason, then you can leverage the custom OAuth to actually use that. Don't do like me, basically go inside the FileMaker and changing icons, because that's never a good way of doing it. Yeah, on that front, we've only basically updated the custom OAuth page so that it's easier for people to actually put the right URLs that's actually there.
All right, well, let's move on to just some basic or, general best practices for building a reliable and secure FileMaker server environment. I don't know, Doug, do you want to start with just, basic specifications and recommendations?
So the first one we mentioned is have a specific server just for your FileMaker. Especially, I mean, if internally it's running the whole company, whether it's your sales department, whatever, just make sure you have basically everything on a specific machine. I know for a long time people were like, well, you can have multiple servers on that, but it's not ideal. In terms of security, the same is it should be in a room where there's limited access. So don't put it on top of a fridge or on a desk. Ideally, if you have a room inside your building, put it there, or just basically use any other great sort of data centers on the planet, whether it's Amazon, AWS, Azure. I mean, there's so many out there that can actually sort of making sure, again, have an SSL certificate. I mean, from day one, since you're basically paying for it for the FileMaker side of it, and you want a secure environment, just make sure you have an SSL certificate. Firewall control as well. Make sure that's pretty much well controlled. Which in a lot of cases, it's easier to do that when you're using through a data center, like AWS or Azure have really nice interfaces where you can create the ports that need to be open, so that not everything is open to the whole world. And that should actually make your life a lot easier. And that's really the basic stuff. So that there's more thing you can do, but at least basically have that, and at least you should actually be kind of safe.
And Jasper, how do you have these conversations with your customers about both just best practices and also security?
Yes, some of the things we advise to our customers are already things that Doc said. So yeah, be careful with the firewall. Yeah, only open the ports you need for the FileMaker service. What we do is don't keep the remote desktop port open to the outside. We use an SSH tunnel to reach that, or a VPN. What you could also do if you don't want to set up these things is just whitelist your office IP, for example, for RDP, and your home IP, for example, if you work from there as well. So it's not open to the whole internet. Yeah, stay up to date with your FileMaker server and your operating system updates, so you enjoy the latest security patches. And another thing is, it's not always technology that plays a part, but also policies. In a lot of cases, we still see that customers are using weak passwords for the servers, their computer, their admin console, for their FileMaker login. So it's important to make them aware of this, that they are at risk, and offer to help him to make this better. Also encourage the use of encryption at rest before you put a database on the server, because a lot of times customers send over a database that doesn't have encryption at rest enabled. These are all small things you can do. If it's an on-premise machine at the customer, and this is handled by an external IT company, it's always good to sit together with the customer and IT partner to think about a backup strategy. The FileMaker server makes the backups locally on the machine, but yeah, if the company burns down and the server is gone with it, then you don't have any backup anymore. So it's important, and it's usually or at least in our case, something that the IT partner handles, is we discuss a plan to create an offsite backup to one of their external data centers, or another service where you can move the backup through. Also, a thing to think about is hourly backups. That's also something we advise to our customers. In most cases, we create one backup every hour during the working day. So when in the afternoon something happens, you don't need to start with the backup from the night before, and then you can just fall back on the backup of 1 hour before, and the lost data is how do you say it? Yeah, it's not that bad. What we hear a lot is, yeah, but we don't have enough disk space to do a backup every hour. If you have multiple databases, then it's good to see which databases are often used and maybe set up only hourly backups for the most important database. It's actually a bit of risk management you have to do with your customer or the organization to see what best fits their needs.
Yeah, there's actually a couple questions coming in about that. And I think you kind of addressed one. One is, does doing backups hourly impact performance during the day?
In most cases, not. We have seen certain situations where you have big monolithic files and that can slow things down. Or if you have lots of secure files, I mean secure container storage, then it can take a while, and yeah, you have some performance issues that can happen. So yeah, in those cases, it's better not to, if you can, not to work with those big monolithic files, but try to split up the application in multiple smaller files, so this process can go quicker or more fluent.
Yeah, and the other question is, why do you recommend hourly backups and not use progressive backups?
We used to use progressive backups, and we run them every 5 or 10 minutes, but it only keeps the last two backups. And by the time a customer notices an issue and calls that there is a problem, by that time, your last progressive backup, where the situation was still okay, is already overwritten by a new progressive backup, and then you're actually too late to fix it. So that's why we went to hourly backups.
Yeah, I'm seeing Dave Knight asked a question just of the audience in the chat. How are you interspersing progressive versus full backups during working hours? And we've seen a few recommendations. Some doing full backups a couple times a day, and then with progressives during the day. Others full backups every hour and progressives every 15 minutes.
Yeah, I think for 19% of our customers, the hourly backup is done in less than a minute. So I would say if that's the case, then you don't have to worry about it. If it's a very big application where it really has an impact on performance, then you have to check how you could manage it. Maybe backup only the most important database, or yes, maybe try the progressive backup solution. But you have to really act fast in case there is a problem then, because you cannot choose to keep more than two backups with a progressive backup.
Right. Well, thanks. Let's shift gears a little bit now to FileMaker Cloud. Sangeeta, I know we just released the FileMaker 2024 FileMaker Cloud this week, and there have also been a few sneaky updates to Cloud in the last couple of months. Can you share those security and performance improvements as well?
Sure. Let me share mine. In here. Okay. Can you?
Yep.
Okay. So we have done some significant enhancements related to backups and auto maintenance over the past few releases, just prior to the last one that was launched earlier this week, which was 2.21.1. Now, with these enhancements, you can have more flexibility and control over managing your data in a secure platform and feel more confident. Now, some of these enhancements include direct download of backups without having to restore it, which simplifies the process of managing your data. And then having the local backups gives you access to critical data without depending on the internet connection. Now, next is that you have customizable backup settings that allows you to tailor your configurations to suit your needs. Now, this includes the deleted database retention policy, which is stored by default for 7 days. Before the automatic deletion begins. However, you can change the value to a minimum of 1 day and all the way up to 15 days if you want longer retention. Similarly, for the backups retention policy, which is stored by default for 30 days with a minimum of 1 day and a maximum of 30 days. Now, these enhancements really are helpful when you are dealing with larger files. So if based on the value you set, you can free up the disk space to boost performance, especially with the larger files. The next is the download unencrypted backups. Now we have, while uploading an unencrypted Claris FileMaker profile, FileMaker Cloud automatically does encryption for you. Now you can download these files without requiring an encryption password for local access, and FileMaker Cloud does the decryption for you. Besides this customizable backup settings, we also have on-demand backup, which you can manually trigger on-demand backup by using the Backup Now button. Now, when you start an on-demand backup, the cooldown period is 10 minutes, which is half our automatic incremental backup, which runs every 20 minutes. Next, you can see we have the backup message center now that allows you to receive all the statuses on the backup restoration task, and you can view all the incremental statuses starting from, and it is really helpful when you are doing a backup of the backup restoration of the larger files. And it starts with the starting status or zipping the file or now downloading the backups, and it also shows failed success status, and you can do retries. Speaking about the auto maintenance, is really important for maintaining security, performance, and reliability of your infrastructure by automatically applying updates to your FileMaker Cloud on regular basis. Now, as you already know, that we have had the daily auto maintenance for some time now, and it's an existing feature. And with this feature, your FileMaker Cloud instance is automatically restarted once a day based on the window that you set up, that is the 1 hour window that you set up, which you can configure. Now, however, you might your daily auto maintenance might not run if your clients are connected. Now, this is really important that we do auto maintenance. So we have now the new feature, which is the weekly auto maintenance that ensures best practice. And once you set up the time window and enable this feature, even if the clients are connected, it will disconnect all the clients and run the auto maintenance for critical updates. Now, you will see that there is a toggle switch for now, which means that you need to enable this feature, and and we highly encourage you to enable this feature, and so that your weekly auto maintenance runs. In the future, we are going to make sure that this is always set to enabled by default, and we'll ensure that it runs on a weekly basis. So with that, these are some of the new features that we have done over the backups and maintenance for the past 2 releases. But I would also like to touch upon some of the security features which, you know, Jasper talked about, and how it plays in the cloud when we are talking about encryption. So we, as you all know, our cloud, FileMaker Cloud runs on top of AWS, and we leverage all the AWS infrastructure and the services. So our data is encrypted at rest with AES 256-bit encryption, and also encryption. We provide encryption in transit. And we also leverage the AWS key management, and we also, as we were talking earlier about our relationship with Apple, so we have our security management, we have our incident management, vulnerability, and we have disaster recovery, and we get audited on our processes, as well as we have trainings in place for people, process, and also the technology and the software tools that we use to keep our cloud updates up to date. And all these security controls are actually defined in our SOC 2 Type 2 report, and there are various sections, and it also talks about our relationship with Apple and how we all work together on the disaster recovery. And if you want, you can also request the report by sending an email to compliance@claris.com.
Thanks, Sangeeta, for all of that. And I just want to thank everybody who's been super active in the chat, sharing their backup strategies and best practices and tips and tricks. It's great to see all of you here and participating. And we just have a few minutes left. So if you have any last questions, please get those into the chat, or if we missed one and you can find it and re-enter it so we get to it, please do that. And while we wait, Sangeeta, I do have another sort of cloud related question. And that is, what kinds of assurances can you give if someone says, I'm running FileMaker Server in my environment, and I think I do want to move off premise. How do I know that cloud is good enough for me? Both, I think, from a security and performance standpoint.
Yes, so you know, we have based on the number of users you have, and the size of your the applications, and we have some choices on the cloud. Like, for example, we have 2 tiers. One is called Essentials and Standards, and Essentials supports 5 to 10 users, whereas the Standards supports 5 to all the way to 150 users. Now, you can choose any one of this, and obviously with the Essentials, we have the start with the larger instance from the AWS, while on the Standard, we can go up to all the way on a larger instance, the extra large instances. So that's one of the choices and options you have. The second, as I mentioned earlier, all the security features that you set up for your server or your pro or your FileMaker solutions, we already uptake that in the cloud. And as our cloud is running with one of the leading, be hosted on one of the leading service providers, which is AWS, we leverage their infrastructure and the data centers. So, and our data is encrypted both at rest and in transit. We run TLS 1.3. And we go through we have the disaster recovery and disaster recovery in process, which is also part of our SOC 2. And we go ahead and we go through the audit process and have defined all this defined the security controls, as well as the people, process, and the technology as part of the SOC 2. So I would highly recommend that you get the SOC 2 Type 2 report to get an understanding of what we have in the cloud. And we do, while we are uploading the solutions, we do have, we make sure they are heavily tested, and we are doing benchmarking internally for the performance and the reliability.
Yeah, and thanks for that. I do see a couple last questions. I just want to say we just did do another poll. So if you can sneak in your response in the next few seconds, we'd appreciate that. We do have a question about the default scripts for Let's Encrypt, and I think maybe Doug, you can address this. When the server reboots as part of the Let's Encrypt renewal process, does that script automatically close the all the files on the server before doing the restart, or does it rely on the operating system and FileMaker Server to close the files and before that restart?
The script itself will close the file, restart the server. It's not going to restart the machine, it just basically restart the server. So if you haven't saved your EAR passwords, you will have to actually enter them. So if you use Let's Encrypt, basically, the best way to be able to is to basically make sure you have the password saved already in the system. I'm just checking basically the script just to see what it does at the end. I think it's yeah, it restarts the server.
All right,
so you would need, well, there's a way you could actually get it not to restart the server if you wanted to, but then you're losing basically the option between the certificates. Best way is to save your EAR passwords in your admin console, and so that way when the server restarts, you don't actually have any issues of losing passwords or having to type them again, or the file not opening up for users. In case you're not there.
Yeah, and I don't know.
The one quick thing before I forget, I love the conversation on the backups and the strategy. One thing is to always remind people, and I know all of you did, is to test the backup files. We had one case not long ago from a partner calling us saying they had issues, they hadn't tested backups for quite a few months, and so they had to actually put back to a very low backup. So even though having everything, and I think I could mention it, make sure there's like you have still a plan around it to be able to actually test the backup to make sure the files are actually working properly in case you actually get back to them. You don't actually have to do on every backup, but if you have a plan, I think it's always good to actually have that in the back of your mind.
All right, well, thanks, Doug. And thank you also, Jasper and Sangeeta, for the good conversation. Thanks also to everybody who weighed in the chat. And we just have a couple more security resources to share. One is that we're working with several partners on a free security checkpoint. So if you would like a security checkup on your FileMaker apps and server environment, please visit that page and sign up. And someone from our team, from our customer success team, will be in touch with you to pair you up with a partner. And also, we've got 2 more community live sessions on the calendar. Next week, we'll be going back to some of the AI features of FileMaker 2024, talking to a few people about what they can do now with these AI features in FileMaker 2024, but that they couldn't do in the past. So what used to be impossible that is now possible. And then on August 8th, I think, I'm trying to remember the calendar, but coming up in the first or second week in August, we'll be talking with Jamie Curtright from Mobile Tire Shop about their success using FileMaker and the approach that they took to kind of incrementally build out an operating system for their whole business that has led to tremendous growth and success. I mean, we just released a success story case study with them, and so I'm very excited to talk to Jamie and learn how they did this. So with that, thank you again for joining us, and I hope to see you all next week.
Thank you.
Bye.